Hi Year 4 and welcome to Thursday's maths lesson on decimals. If you want to pause the video and have a go at the starter on the video, and then we'll go through it together afterwards. So hopefully you managed to have a go at that. It's quite a tricky question. There was a very similar one in Group 2's questions yesterday. That's kind of the reason I did it again, just to have a bit more practice with it. And for those who didn't go on to Group 2, just to have a go at it, because sometimes it's good to challenge ourselves and have a go. So the question says, I am thinking of a number. It is less than 1. It has an odd number in the tenths column, and it can be made with using less than 4 counters on a 10 frame. What number could I be thinking of? So let's look at the kind of success criteria again. It's less than 1, so therefore it's going to be a fraction or a decimal. So it could be written as either, because if we know it's less than 1, it's not a whole number, so it's definitely a fractional decimal. It has an odd number in the tenths column. So think of it like a place value grid. The numbers, the digits you write in, there's going to be no ones because it's less than 1, but in your tenths column it needs to be an odd number. Let me underline that because that's quite important. So odd number. It can be made with using less than 4 counters on a 10 frame. So if I draw a 10 frame, there we go, and we were using less than 4 counters, so let me draw a counter. So there's 1, 2, 3. So remember we're using less than 4, so I've just done 3 because I know that's less than 4. So could it be, if these counters are representing 0.1 or 1/10, because remember it's less than 1, could it be 0.3? Because if it's a 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, and you add them all up, it'll be 0.3. So 0.3, it is less than 1. It's an odd number in the tenths column because it would be written like this, and that's the tenths column, therefore that's an odd number. And it can be made with using less than 4 counters on a 10 frame. Yes, so it would fit all of that. So therefore it could be 0.3. It also could be 0.1, because that is also an odd number in the tenths column, and you can make it using less than 4 counters on a 10 frame. So it could be either 0.3 or 0.1 or 3/10 or 1/10 if you wrote it as a fraction. Okay, so hopefully that wasn't too bad. It's just, they are quite tricky, but you just got to think through it and just check that you've made sure you've achieved like the whole success criteria kind of thing. So moving on then to today's learning, we're carrying on with what we did yesterday, but focusing more on using place value grids and looking at how we can use the knowledge from yesterday and the beginning of the week to carry on looking at decimals. So let's learn then. So the first question says, what is this number? How do you know? So we need to look at how many ones there are and how many tenths there are. Now there are 1, 2, 3, 4 ones and 1, 2, 3 tenths. I've just counted the counters. So the number has 4 ones and 3 tenths. So the number is 4.3 or 4.3. So the number 4.3 has 4 ones and 3 tenths. Nice and straightforward, hopefully. Let's look at another one then. So this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ones and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tenths. So therefore the number is 5.6, okay, because that's a decimal point there. So any number after ones, tenths, hundredths, and so on, you have to have a decimal point there. The number 5.6 has 5 ones and 6 tenths. Okay, so now it's time for you to have a go. What is this number, and how many ones and tenths are there? So pause the video, have a go, and then we'll go through it together. So there are 1, 2, 3 ones, and there is 1/10. Therefore the number is 3.1, and it has 3 ones and 1/10. Okay, so it should be 3.1 or 3/10. Sorry, that's wrong, not 3/10. It's 3 wholes and 1/10. I looked at that wrong, so it's 3 ones here and 1/10. Okay, hopefully that was okay. So moving on to our developed learning then. what number is shown here as a fraction or as a decimal, and how do we know? So go back to fraction strips, I guess, which is what we used before the half term. So you can see that this is the same as a whole, and it's been split into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 tenths. Okay, so these are tenths, and we know that 10 tenths equals a whole. So we know that one whole has been shaded, and then there is one left over, so it's one whole and 1/10. Okay, so as a fraction, it should be 1 whole and 1/10. It would be a mixed number fraction, or it would be 11 tenths as an improper fraction. Okay, they're the same thing. We did this when we looked at fractions, so hopefully that part was okay for you. The decimal part, now if you had a place value grid where you had your ones and then your tenths, like that, lovely grid, you would have one whole, because you can see it takes up one whole, and there's one left over. So the number would be 1.1 as a decimal. Okay, so because there's one whole shaded, there's one whole here, and there's 1/10 left over, it's 1.1. Okay, let's look at another one together first before you have a go. So what would this be as a fraction? What would it be as a decimal? So straight away we can see that again one whole has been shaded, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tenths has been shaded as well, because these are tenths. If you add them all up, it would be 8. So 1 whole and 8 tenths, which is also 18 tenths. You can write it either way. So as a decimal then, we know that there's going to be one whole, so it's 1, that is in our ones column. Let me draw that place value grid again. That's our ones, that's for our decimal point, and this is our tenths. So we know we've got one whole, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tenths. So therefore it's 1.8 as a decimal. Okay, now it's time for you to have a go. So can you write it as a fraction and as a decimal? The decimal is what I mainly want to say. Okay, so don't worry too much about the fraction, but try and use it, write it as a decimal for me. So as a fraction then, it would be 1 whole and 1, 2, 3, 4 tenths, or 14 tenths, either one. As a decimal, it would be 1.4, because there's one whole, which is 1, and then 4 tenths left over, so 1.4. Okay, now it's your turn to have a go. So this is group 1's first set of questions. So there's 3 different questions here. This one, it says you need to use counters or place value counters, so you can just draw them, or you could use objects at home like pens or something, or like counters that you might have in a game. Anything that you can think of, feel free to use it, or you can draw them in your books if that's easier for you. So these are group 1's questions. There's 1, 2, 3 there. It should be quite straightforward. This is for group 1 and 2. This is group 2 as well. Group 2. And then the challenge. So all of these questions are on the PDF on the website. I'm sorry, the last few days I haven't put the challenge on the online PDF with the questions, so I apologise for that. It wasn't intentional, it was just purely by accident, so sorry about that. But this time the challenge is on the PDF to print off. Okay, so once you've done that, come back and we will go through the answers together. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you managed to have a go at some of those questions. Let's go through group 1 first. So it says complete the stem sentences for the decimals in the place value grid. So there are 0 ones for this first one, 0 ones, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tenths. So the decimal represented is 0.5. With this one, there are 0 ones again, and there is 1/10. So therefore, the decimal is 0.1. Use counters or place value counters to make the decimal on a place value grid. So if you had a place value grid, I'm just going to pause the video and quickly draw one. Okay, so here's a place value grid. For 0.2, it would be 2 counters here. So there's no ones, but there's 2 tenths, so you draw 2 counters there. For 1.2, you would have 1, 1, and then 2 in the tenths column. And then 0.8, you'd have no counters in the ones, but you'd have 8 counters here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 tenths counters. And then the last question, it says there are something ones and something tenths. So there are 3 ones and there are 2 tenths. So therefore, 3 ones and 2 tenths, which is 3 and 0.2 equals 3.2. Use a place value grid and stem sentences to describe these decimals. So you kind of had to partition them and write them out as that. So for 4.0, or just 4, there are 4 ones, and so I'll tell you them rather than writing them down. There are 4 ones and 0 tenths. 4 ones add 0 tenths equals 4. 5.9, there are 5 ones and 9 tenths. 5 ones add 9 tenths. 5 add 0.9 equals 5.9. And then last one, 2.2, there are 2 ones and 2 tenths. 2 ones add 2 tenths, or 2 add 0.2 equals 2.2. There's quite a lot of words there, so hopefully that was all okay, but basically you just had to use the same layout as this to write these out. So you just had to figure out what the tenths and the ones were. Group 2 then, and 1, sorry. We managed to do this. What number is shaded above? The shaded parts represent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so that's 10, and then to 13. 13 tenths, or 1.3. And then this one, shade the following fraction strip to represent or show 2.3. So you would have shaded in 2 holes, and then 1, 2, 3 tenths. Okay. Don't worry if you didn't do that one because you weren't able to print it out. As long as you did the first one, that's good. The next one then, group 2, match each statement to the correct number. So this number has 7 tenths. So therefore we're looking for a number with 7 tenths in the tenths column. So this one has 5, this one's 6, this one's 7. Therefore it must be this one. Let's do another colour. The digit in the tenths column is 1 more than the digit in the ones column. That was quite a tricky one. We'll leave that for the minute. We'll do the easier ones first. That's what I always do. And then we'll go back to the hard ones. There are more ones than tenths. And this number has 15 tenths. So we'll do this one. There are more than 1 tenths. So 5 has more than 1 tenth. 6 and 5 has... Sorry, I read it wrong. There are more ones than tenths. So 4 is in the ones and there's 5 in the tenths, therefore that wouldn't be it. This one, there is 6 tenths and 7 ones, therefore it could be that one because there are more ones. There's 7 ones and only 6 tenths. There's more ones than tenths. So that one would match up with that one. This number has 15 tenths. That one would be the bottom one because if you have 15 tenths, you therefore have 1 whole and 5 tenths left over, which is the same as 1.5. And then this one would match up with the top one, and we can check that as well. It says the digit in the tenths column is 1 more than the digit in the ones column. So in the tenths column we have 5, and then if we add 1 more to that, other way around, sorry. So the 4 in the ones column, if we add 1 more to that, it would be 5, which is in the tenths column. So those are the correct ones to match them up to. The third question, for group 2, it says answer the following problems using the digit cards. The largest number that can be made is 8.7 because you use the largest one first in the ones column and then the second largest one in the tenths column. The smallest number that can be made is 2.6 because you would use the smallest number from the ones on the digit cards for the ones, which is 2, and then the smallest number again for the tenths. It doesn't say that you can't use them again, so you could have done 2.2, I guess, because it doesn't actually say you can only use them once. But if we were using them only once, then it would be 2.6. And then these ones, you had to think of a number that was bigger than 82 but smaller than 83. So therefore, it just had to be 82 point something, because if you think of a number line, if you have 82 on one side, 83 on the other, in between them on each increment on the number line, it would be 82.1, 82.3, 82.4, and so on. So you could do 82.6 or 82.7. Either one would work. So for the other one, you would do 82.7. But either one, you could have it the other way around as well. And finally, for the challenge, it says 2 children are making 11 tenths. So Amia has put 1 in the ones and 1/10 in the tenths. Rosie has put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 tenths in the tenths. Who has made it correctly, and explain your answer? So they've actually both made it correctly. Amia has just made sure that he's kind of exchanged 10 tenths and put them in the ones as 1, because we discussed in yesterday's lesson that 1 is the same as 10 tenths. Like when we do, if we have a 10, that is 10 ones. When we exchange from our tens to our ones, it works the same with ones to tenths. If you have 1, you could exchange that into your tenths for 10 tenths, which is what Rosie has done. So Rosie has actually just exchanged the ones for 10 tenths, which is why she's got 11 tenths here. So they're both correct. They've just shown it in different ways. That's everything for today. Hopefully it all made sense. If you have any problems or any questions, then let me know. And thank you for watching.